Hare Krishna. We're reading
Hare Krishna.
fourth canto, chapter 24, verse 59, Lord Shiva's prayers to Lord Vishnu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yasya Chittam Bahya Artha Vibraman Tamo Guhuyam Cha Visurama Visat Yad Bhakti Yoga Nugrahitam Anjasa Murnir Vichastein Anutattate Gatim. Translation. This is Lord Shiva is offering beautiful prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Continuation of the prayers. Devotees' heart has been completely cleansed by the process of devotional service, and who is favored by Bhakti Devi does not become bewildered by the external energy, which is like a dark well. Being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your name, fame, form, activities, etc. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25, Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katam. Vajosina raspa aspa varga vartmani strada bhaktir bhatir anukramishyati. Simply by association of pure devotees, one can understand the transcendental name, fame, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Sarusanga, Sarusanga, Sarvasrastikoi, Lavamatta Sarusange, Sarvasiddhihoi. Simply by associating with pure devotees, one becomes wonderfully advanced in Krishna consciousness. Sadhu Sangha, or association with the devotee, means always engaging in Krishna consciousness by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and by acting for Krishna. Specifically, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra purify one, and this chanting is therefore recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaito Dharpana Marjanam. By chanting the names of Krishna, the mirror of the heart is cleansed, and the devotee loses interest in everything external. When one is influenced by the external energy of the Lord, his heart is impure. When one's heart is not pure, he cannot see things are related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Idam vivishvam bhagavam mivetara. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 5th chapter, verse number 20. He whose heart is purified can see that the whole cosmic manifestation is but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he whose heart is contaminated sees things differently. Therefore, by satsanga, or association with devotees, one becomes perfectly pure in heart. One who is pure in heart is never attracted by the external energy, which urges the individual soul to try to dominate material nature. The pure heart of a devotee is never disturbed when he executes devotional service in the form of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. In all, there are 9 processes one can follow in the execution of devotional service. In any case, a pure-hearted devotee is never disturbed. The bhakti yoga process must be carried out by avoiding the 10 offenses one can commit while chanting the Mahamantra and the 64 offenses one can commit while worshiping the deity. When a devotee strictly follows the rules and regulations, Bhakti Devi becomes very much satisfied with him. At that time, he is never disturbed by anything external. A devotee is also called a muni. The word muni means thoughtful. A devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative. The non-devotee speculation is impure. The devotee's thoughts are pure. Lord Kapila Dev and Sukadeva Goswami are also called Muni, and Vyasadeva is addressed as Mahamuni. A devotee is addressed as Muni or thoughtful when he purely understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that when one's heart is purified by the association of devotees and by the avoidance of offenses committed when chanting and worshiping the Lord, the transcendental name, form, and activities of the Lord are revealed by the Lord. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gena Jena Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Varavani Pastarine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pasyatya De Satarine Vanchakapa Rubis Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in the series of verses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva now glorifies the process of pure devotional service. Because the process of pure devotional service centers around glorifying the Lord. And as is mentioned here, the association with devotees and the process of glorifying the Lord brings one's consciousness free from the impurities of material energy. What are those impurities? Why do we say material energy causes one to become impure? There are activities in the material energy that are based on one's desire to control and enjoy the material energy. The material energy is Krishna's energy. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Daiviyesha Gunamayi Mamamaya Daratyaya Mam Eva Ye Papadyante Maya Ante Tarantite. That this material energy, consisting of the three modes of material energy, are my energy. And he is ultimately the controller of that energy. As he puts it in place, he also controls it. And it works in a certain way. So those whose minds are diverted towards the material energy for enjoyment take on certain characteristics and qualities. And those qualities are kama, krodha, lobha, mata, matsarya, and mohan, lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy. And these are the what we call enemies of the living entity in the material world that exist when one tries to enjoy this material energy, because this material energy belongs to Krishna. It has a purpose. What is that purpose? It allows the living entity to use the facilities that one has at one's disposal to worship the Lord. Manaso, Deho, Geho, Yokichumur, Arpilun to Alpade, Nandakishore. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, one of the great stalwart acharyas in the line of Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas coming directly from Krishna, explains that everything he has, he puts himself as an example. My home, my family, my possessions, my very existence, it all belongs to you. And he's not just making some eulogy sound very spiritual. He's actually giving us a clear understanding that this material energy is created by Krishna for a certain reason, to purify the living entity's desire to lord it over the material energy, to frustrate those desires, and to force the conditioned soul to awaken to their natural position in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one who knows the purpose of this material energy does not try to enjoy the material energy, but tries to use the material energy in the service of the Lord. One can, it says, one can worship the Lord by one's mind, by one's words, by one's opulences, and ultimately by one's life existence. These 4 ways, and one's intelligence also, these 5 ways one can practice devotional service to the Lord. And here in this verse, it describes what is that process of devotional service. Sadhusanga, the association of others who are also engaged in worshiping the Supreme Lord. And that verse that's quoted in this, Satam Prasangam Mama Virya Samvido, Bhavati Ritkarna Rasayana Kata. And this verse is very direct in explaining what is the process of devotional service, to be in association with others and to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. And of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, has given us the process in a very simple and very direct way. Chant the holy names of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is the means by which one can purify the heart. So what does it mean to purify the heart? It means to get rid of all of those desires that are contrary to our actual well-being, or let me say, progress towards worshiping the Lord. So the holy name of the Lord purifies the heart. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, he has come into this material world to enunciate that process of pure devotional service that was given by Krishna himself, as he explains that process in the Bhagavad Gita. Mahaprabhu has come to execute and to teach directly from the position of a devotee of the Lord how one can worship the Lord. And it's centered around glorifying the Lord, especially chanting the holy names of the Lord. And as this verse says, that chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord is Rasayana Kata. It's sweet. It becomes nectar to hear about the Lord. It makes the heart happy. It gives pleasure to the ear, to the mind. So this is the process of devotional service. But then again, we find that in the association of devotees, the process has a very powerful effect. There are many examples throughout the scriptures of persons who were very, very sinful and very malicious, all bad qualities. Somehow, by some unknown good fortune, they came in association with a great soul. One of the examples that we have that is very prominent, there was a hunter. His name was Mugrari the hunter. The story and the life of Mugrari the hunter is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, wherein it's described that this one hunter, he had an occupation of hunting by shooting arrows into various animals, but not killing the animal, just half killing it and letting it suffer and ultimately die. He derived great pleasure by seeing animals suffer in that way, and that was his means of livelihood. Narada Muni had been coming along that same path. He noticed all of these animals that were half killed, suffering. He was astonished and very much aghast to see the sufferings of these animals, and he was thinking, who has done this? Finally, he came across this hunter, and he asked him, and he said, yes, this is my occupation. My father has done this, my father's father, all the way back many, many generations. This is our livelihood. And he was proud of what he was doing. Narada Muni was thinking how to somehow change this person's mind. And then he explains, well, why don't you just kill the animal completely? Why do you do it half? He said, well, this is what I've learned in the tradition, and we enjoy this very much to see the animals suffer in that way. So Narada Muni was thinking, what can I do? So he explained to him, do you know you are doing all of this in order to take care of your family, but because you are committing sinful activities by unnecessarily killing living entities and causing them great suffering, you will have to suffer in hell for many, many thousands of lifetimes. And the Narada Muni, by his spiritual potency, revealed how Murgari the hunter would have to suffer tremendously from killing these animals. After seeing and hearing and understanding what was his future, he became really, we might say, overwhelmed with anguish. And he was thinking what to do now. And he said, Narada Muni said, even though you are providing for your family, you will get all of the reactions of all of the suffering for all animals. After becoming frightened to see about his future, he fell at the feet of Narada Muni and begged forgiveness and asked what he can do. Narada immediately said, give up this occupation. He said, how will I live? This is how I live. If I do not live this way, how will I eat? How will I maintain my family? Narada Muni said, as soon as you give up this activity, and also I will teach you to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, the holy names of the Lord. If you follow this, and automatically everything will be provided for you without any extra endeavor. So having faith in Narada Muni, he gave up his activities and started to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Narada left after some time. People who had known this hunter saw the change of his heart. Now he was not committing these sinful activities anymore, and he was glorifying the Lord. So people from the local villages started to bring various types of foodstuffs for him to live. And he got more than he actually needed, along with taking care of his family. After some time, Narada Muni returned to the scene to see his disciple, to see how he was doing. And then when he was coming, Narada Muni was coming along with his associate Parvat Muni, and they were coming together, and they were walking towards Murgari. Murgari wanted to greet his spiritual master, but he saw that there were some ants lying in the path. So he was thinking, if I pay my respects, then I will crush these ants. So he very carefully took his cloth and brushed the ants aside and offered his respect. Parvat Muni was amazed to see how much this hunter had changed simply by the association of Narada Muni, and he understood that he had received the supreme blessing. And of course, at one point, he was killing animals viciously without the slightest remorse, slightest regret. And now he didn't even want to kill an ant. This was the transformation that takes place in the heart of one who associates with a great soul. By that association, as it says here, sadhu sangha, sarva shastri hoy, lavamatta sadhu sange, sarva siddhi hoy. By associating with a great soul, after some time, one will become free from the tendency to commit sinful activities. One's heart will gradually start to become pure, and one will be able to understand their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in loving devotional service. So this example of Narada Muni purifying Magrari is just one of many examples throughout the history of Vaishnava culture. Just mention another one, we also have the example of Valmiki Muni, who was also a hunter and a malicious, and he was actually a murderer. But after associating with Narada Muni and chanting the holy names of Lord Ram, he became purified, so much so that he actually developed a pure consciousness where he could understand and delineate and ultimately narrate the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it appears to be quite miraculous how one can transform oneself from a very sinful, low personality to a great soul simply by the association of great souls. So sometimes devotees who engage in devotional service, they say, well, you know, I have had association with many great souls, but I'm not purified. So then maybe the process doesn't work for me, or maybe the process just doesn't work. But then again, this question is also answered by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. He explains that using an analogy, he says, when the wood is wet, the fire cannot begin. The wood has to dry out, and as soon as the wood dries out, immediately it becomes alighted. So in the same way, continue in association with devotees, and through the process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and the happiness that comes from that, gradually one's mind and heart becomes purified, and one no longer looks to the material energy for satisfaction to fulfill one's desires to enjoy in this material world. Because, as it says, the soul's relationship with Krishna is pure. And that pure relationship is simply awakened through the process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And of course, in the association of great souls. Here it is also mentioned in this particular verse that one has to follow certain principles, such as avoiding 10 offenses of chanting. And then Srila Prabhupada also kind of hits us very hard with a statement by saying one has to follow the 64 regulations, which are required in order to worship the deity. What are those rules? What are those regulations? Of course, they're mentioned in Nectar Devotion. But what are they? They are means by which we can become protected from the influence of the material energy. Rules and regulations are not actually bhakti themselves, but they support bhakti by allowing us to become not influenced by the external energy. In other words, by walking the path of bhakti, we are protected by these principles of restrictions and injunctions. We call them vidhis and nishedas, things to do and things to avoid. Now you might think, wow, that's a lot, 64. But actually, when you break it actually down, Krishna explains in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he summarizes those 64 into 15 in one verse. I can actually give you the verse if you'd like to look it up. It's the 11th canto, 19th chapter, verses 20 and 20 to 24. 11, 19, 20 to 24. I believe that's the verses. Let's see if we are correct here. It's a series of 5 verses, all in one. Yeah, here he goes. So Krishna summarizes these 64 into 15, and we can read them. Firm faith in the blissful narrations of my pastimes, constant chanting of my glories, unwavering attachment to ceremony worship of me, praising me through beautiful hymns, great respect for my devotional service, offering obeisances with the entire body, performing first-class worship of my devotees, consciousness of me in all living entities, offering of ordinary bodily activities and devotional service, use of words to describe my qualities, offering the mind to me, rejections of more material desires, giving up wealth for my devotional service, renouncing material sense gratification and happiness, and performing all desirable activities such as charity, sacrifice, chanting, vows, and austerities with the purpose of achieving me. These constitute actually religious principles by which those human beings who have actually surrendered themselves to me automatically develop love for me. What other purpose or goal could remain for my devotee? So Krishna condenses those 64 into these 15, which are centered around, if you look at them very carefully, you'll find that they're the essence of this is association with great souls, hearing from them, worshiping them whenever one has the opportunity, and hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And the result is then one loses, and this is the thing that sometimes people don't understand. Do I have to give up this? Do I have to give up that? Do I have to give up this? One should understand that by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord in the association with devotees, one develops a higher taste. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Visayam vinivartante, niharasya dehinam, raso varjam raso pyasyat, haram drisva nivartante. He explains that by getting the higher taste, Krishna consciousness is the higher taste, the sweeter taste. The lower taste of material life, which is pale, dry, and does not satisfy one, can be given up automatically, just as when one is hungry, if someone comes to you and you haven't eaten for a long time and someone says, here is a nice chapati. We don't have any salt, we don't have any ghee. It's just a plain chapati. Because you're hungry, here, this is what we can offer you. And you're thinking, well, because I'm hungry, I'll accept it. But then again, someone comes along at the same time with a big feast, all of your favorite preparations. You think, wow, what about, I'll take this instead of the chapati. So that's Krishna consciousness. Material life offers some menial and very puny form of sense gratification, but the higher taste, the sweet taste, which is the soul's proclivity for its relationship with the Lord, comes by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord in the association of devotees. And that is what Srila Prabhupada established. In establishing this ISKCON society, he arranged for temples to be opened all around the world, to install deities of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra Maharani, to establish deities of Gaur Nitai, Radha and Krishna, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman, and perform various worships of the Lord in association with devotees, but most important, along with that, hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. And this is the process of pure devotional service, which is everyone is hankering for. Why? Because everyone is looking for happiness. Everyone is looking for Krishna ultimately, because he represents the principle of ultimate happiness. So one should not become overwhelmed by thinking there's so many rules and regulations and restrictions. If one hears and chants in the association of the devotees and has faith in that process, gradually a higher taste awakens, and then the rules and regulations automatically become served by that. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is explained that there are two principles which satisfy and fulfill all of the 64 rules and regulations. And that is to always remember Krishna. And number 2 is to never forget Krishna. There's a verse in the Mahabharata. From that verse in the Mahabharata has been placed within the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya Lila, chapter 22. I think it's verse number 113. I'm not sure of the number, but yeah, I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me see how close we are to that one. Chapter The Opulence and Sweetness of Lord Krishna, verse 113. It's a very long chapter, obviously. No, this is not the verse. This is something different. So, but the verse says that simply by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna, all the rules and regulations become subservient to that. So this verse that we're hearing today, Lord Shiva's glorification of the Lord, he's actually glorifying the process of pure devotional service, which is the means by which one can attain the association of Krishna. As we attain, as we have desire to associate with others, to enjoy life in that way, but we can associate directly with Krishna through his name, through his form, through his activities, and especially through his pure devotees, whose life is simply engaged in glorifying and worshiping the Lord. So this is the process. If we take to it very seriously in due course of time, this process acts quite fast, because if one is serious in executing devotional service, the mercy of the Lord flows very quickly into the heart of that devotee, and he becomes happy. And he becomes free from the anxiety that comes by associating with this external material energy. Okay, so we'll conclude here.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. So let's summarize. Guru Maharaj spoke about chanting as a means of purifying the heart, and purification of the heart means getting rid of the desires which are contrary to spiritual progress. Then also this chanting, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to execute and teach and execute the directs of chanting. But this process is more powerful when it is done in the association of devotees. Then we heard the pastime of Mrigari Hunter, and how he became a pure devotee by the causeless mercy of Narad Muni. And chanting without offenses, we heard we have to follow rules and regulations, which we have been talking about. But rules and regulations are not bhakti in itself, but they help us and allow Bhakti Devi to manifest itself. Then there are then Guru Maharaj taught us 64 regulations to be followed while doing Giri worship are condensed to 15 in 11th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 19th chapter, verse 20 to 24. And then all these principles of 64 rules and regulations can be summarized in two lines in Chaitanya Chaitamrita, which is stated in Chaitanya Chaitamrita, which is never forget Krishna, always remember Krishna. And this is the Yuga Dharma. So if we can chant, we can purify our existence, and we don't have to leave anything. We have to just let Krishna in. At this point, I will request any questions, reflections, clarifications. If you can please raise your hand or write in the chat so we can take the questions.
That verse that we were trying to find is in chapter 22. It's verse number 113.
Gurumaj,
22.
Madhya Leela?
Yeah, Madhya Leela, chapter 22,
Chapter 22. Okay.
1 verse 113.
Chapter 20.
That's 21, chapter 22,
113.
113. Yeah, so this gets right to the point. Krishna is the
Krishna.
Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be servants of these two principles. The Padma Purana says there are many regulative principles and Shastra directions given by the spiritual master. The regulative acts as that is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain that all of the activities in devotional service is meant to help us remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And then he says these two principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. Smartavya, what is that?
Smartavya Satatam Vishnu.
Vishwa Marta Najatu Shit. And the conclusion is that one must act in such a way he is always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that make one forget Krishna. These two principles form the basic background of Krishna. Very simple. Of course, it's not so easy, but this is the formula is there to hear and chant the glories in the association of devotees.
Thank you, Gurumaj. Thank you so much. Any questions, reflections, realizations? Or if you would like to ask Gurumaj any questions that I have or you have not been able to address. Ashwara Subhadra, Hare Krishna.
Hi Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for a wonderful class. Please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So most of the time when we associate with devotees, when we try to do sadhu sangha, the fault finding tendencies in other devotees is there, Maharaj. So how do we overcome the fault finding tendencies in other devotees and avoid Vaishnava aparadha?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gives the formula. He says, when you see faults in devotees, then also look for their good qualities. He says it's natural to see faults, but we should also look for the good qualities. So to see faults and good qualities side by side is easy or normal for the conditioned soul. We have a tendency to see faults, but if we overlook the faults and then look for the good qualities and glorify the good qualities of the devotee, then the mind becomes happy, the mind becomes peaceful. Fault finding simply disturbs the mind and creates an awkward situation by which we can eventually commit offenses. And by committing offenses, we lose the mercy of the Lord. So never mind about other people's faults. It's not so important. Just dismiss it and look for their good qualities.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Dr. Saxena, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, my Dandavat Pranam to you. What does a devotee do at a place where there is no ISKCON temple and association of devotees is not available? How does he get association of pure devotees in such circumstances?
Is it that impossible to associate? Is it that dry where there's nothing available? Usually we can always find devotees if we somehow make some endeavor. But we have to look around and see what's available. We find that throughout the world, although maybe not in temples, but devotees exist everywhere in various places. Maybe small little groups. Sometimes we call them little preaching centers, or sometimes just people have programs at their home. So I think a little time and a little energy to search out and see what's available in your area, you'll find something. I just was reading something yesterday that devotees were going to islands in the Caribbean, the places between North and South America. There's a series of various islands that hardly anybody goes on. And the devotees went there with the Harinam group. And it's amazing that they found, even in these islands, they found devotees who were there. Some were only very few, and others, they found actually regular group meetings of devotees. So Krishna consciousness has spread throughout the world, and you'll find practically in every country of the world, there is some facility available. And we can always look and research through the ISKCON journals and see where there are programs going on. And if it becomes impossible, then you have your Sangha right here. These are association with these devotees. We might not always be able to physically associate, but we can associate through the media. We did that during the lockdown time, during the virus, and devotees were able to find some association, happiness, and some inspiration. And even though it was viral, it's still uplifted. So I think it's a matter of desire. Your desire is there, Krishna will help you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Grateful. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Madhu Mataji. Thank you, Dr. Saxena. Madhu Mataji, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Mataji. Prabhuji, accept my pranam. My question is, like here it is stated, Prabhuji, like devotee is always thoughtful. But in practical life, when we are thoughtful, we are little slow in our action because we instant cannot take action, Prabhuji, because so people think we are little slow or less intelligent, or we are taking more time for something. So how to handle it? Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Well, if you're thoughtful, you won't make any mistakes. It's when we're too much less thoughtful, or when we're just acting out of impulse. Sometimes we say things and do things that are not, we regret later on. It's good to be thoughtful, means to perceive the situation in a more clear way. And thoughtfulness also brings about awareness. It helps us to see and understand things more clear. As it says here, a devotee is thoughtful, a non-devotee is speculative. Speculative means that one thinks simply by observing a situation, one understands the situation. But a devotee can understand that a situation or an individual, when we think about things, we get more ideas, we get more clear understanding of what the situation is. That thoughtfulness comes a lot when we read and hear the scriptures. Just like I'm speaking now, but some people may be just listening to the words, but others may be listening in a way that they're trying to understand as they're listening. There's a difference in hearing, and that hearing is more of an element of thoughtfulness. What is being said? How can I understand it? How does it apply to me? How can I use it in my own life? These are qualities of thoughtfulness, as opposed to in one ear and out the other, which is the way life goes in this world. So it's beneficial to be thoughtful.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
And people will appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Sometimes it's you have to think like, okay, we should be fast, or how we should handle it. So it is we like our firmness sometimes doesn't support. So that's why I asked this question from.
Yeah, just practice.
Yes.
If you practice, it'll become more natural.
Thank you
And
so much.
even though you are thoughtful, you're not slow. You use the word slow. Slow means that nothing is happening really. But when you're thoughtful, something is actually happening. You're moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Prabhuji. Hare
Madhumataji.
Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you. Dr. Parekh.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, my Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Devotional service, when we execute, we need to go through various processes, and obviously we start with the strict following of the regulations, chanting and worshipping deity. But it boils down that was first we need to cleanse our heart, make it what we call pure heart. As I understand, Prabhuji, and the reason I am asking this is whether my understanding is right or wrong. Cleansing of the heart means, number one, removing all the desires and hankering for the material or mundane things. And number two, which is more important, is cleansing of all past sinful actions and reactions of many, many births. And Guru Maharaj, it means ultimately we must bring ourselves to pure stage of pure goodness. Is that a right understanding, Prabhuji?
Yeah, and that's the process. The process, as was mentioned in this verse, is hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord in the association with devotees. This is we might use an ordinary term, this is the fast track in bhakti, because it actually goes right to the heart. And it purifies the heart, just like and Lord Chaitanya has given us the formula in the first verse of Shastaka. Chaito Darpana Margin, cleansing the mind and the heart, pushes back the fire of material existence, awakens one's good fortune, is the quality of transcendental knowledge, gives unlimited happiness. It awakens one's relationship with Krishna and purifies us from purifies all of our life, both inside and outside. So that is the 7 statements that Lord Chaitanya gives when one actually chants free from offense. That's why we have to be very diligent and aware of what are the offenses and very carefully avoid them, because fences are like obstacles in the path of devotion. So if we know what the offenses are and we know how to avoid them, then the process of bhakti is very quick and direct. If the fences are still there, then although there might be slight amounts of cleansing, the process becomes very slow. And sometimes devotees become discouraged, not because they're not following the process, but because they're not avoiding the offenses. One has to be very aware what those offenses are. And Prabhupada mentions the 10 offenses to the holy name. And these are very important. So these are the main offenses to avoid. And there are, of course, others activities which take one away from devotional service, such as acting against the instructions of the spiritual master, finding fault with Vaishnavas. There are many, many things that we have to become clear of and avoid. And then what you said is right. the immediate reactions to our sinful activities are purified along with the, as it explains that just once, purely chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, not even the mantra, one pure name, one can destroy all of one's sinful activities that one has accumulated for many, many thousands and thousands of births in the past. That is the power of Krishna's name, because Krishna's name is Krishna. There's no difference. So, yeah, what you said is correct, but therefore, in the process of positive, we also have to be aware of not to fall into the negative. And there's a thing called Hasti Snan. Hasti Snan is the elephant. He wants to take his bath, so he goes into the river and very nicely, using his trunk, throws water over himself, cleanses himself. When he comes back onto the land, he does the same thing with the dust, and he throws dust back over. So that makes the process very slow and sometimes even hardly moving. So therefore, the process is to emphasize the activities that we are meant to do and carefully avoid those activities, the offenses to the holy name, the offenses to Vaishnavas, the offenses in worship of the deity. These things slow us down in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, the process is very, very quick. Purification comes fast because Krishna's name is very, very powerful, very direct.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Dr. Parekh. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Happy to meet you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Need your mercy and blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Parekh. Prafulla Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna
Gurmaj,
Prabhuji.
is it okay to take the questions?
Yes, we have
Okay.
time.
My most humble obeisances, Prabhuji. I have one question. How to take best advantage of sadhu sangha? How to take best advantage of sadhu sangha, Guruji?
Yeah, by serving the Vaishnavas. Sadhu Sangha means to serve in association with devotees. So serving the devotees, finding ways to serve the devotees. There are many ways one can serve the devotees. Encouraging the devotees, sharing Krishna consciousness together, giving gifts to the devotees, offering prasadam to the devotees. These are ways by which we can associate with devotees like that. Developing friendship with devotees and sharing Krishna consciousness together. We do that in the world. People bind together and talk about their family, their friends, their work, whatever else they do. And they get some encouragement from that. The same process is there with devotees, but the center around Krishna and devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada mentions, and Rupa Goswami actually mentions, that 6 loving exchanges between Vaishnavas. To hear the confidential thoughts of a devotee, to speak confidential thoughts to another devotee, to give a gift, to receive a gift, to give prasadam and to receive prasadam. These are 6 ways by which devotees can associate together. It's in the 4th verse in the Nectar of Instructions, Rupa Goswami's plan, or what we say program, for Vaishnava Sangha. These 6 activities should be performed regularly.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I pray for you. Blessings, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Sujata Mataji, you had your hand up. Would you like to ask or no? Okay. Kumar, there's a question in the chat. What is the difference between never forget Krishna and always remember Krishna?
It's the same, but when you're forgetting Krishna, you have to remember Krishna. And when you're remembering Krishna, you have to remember not to forget Krishna. So it is synonymous, but one is a positive way of saying, and one is the negative way of saying the same thing. Just like you might tell your friend, don't forget to do this. Well, you also remember to say, remember to do this. But don't forget is one way of saying it. Another way is saying, remember to do this. One is to tell you not to avoid the wrong thing. The other one is telling you how to perform the right thing. Same thing, but just different way of saying.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Sujata Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji, my Dandavat Pranam.
Hi Krishna. Hi Krishna Mataji, audible. Audible.
Prabhuji, I feel like I have to do so, like for my kids and all every day in the morning. So, sir, that's why I think if I have to not this work, like if I eat whatever I prepare and I'll have lot of work, a lot of time so that I can chant more number of times. And one more thing, Prabhuji, like by doing the work, if we chant, is that okay? Or qualitative or quantitative? That day the other Mataji was discussing about it. So if I keep mind in my mind Krishna and God, and if I chant, I feel more pleased. And if I just keep chanting, I don't get that much pleasure, Prabhuji.
Well, there's a saying in Bengal, Hate koro koje muki bolo hari. Hate koro kaje muki bolo hari means work with your hands, chant the holy names of the Lord. And so we also recommend that yeah, whatever you're doing, remember Krishna. Even while you're taking care of ordinary activities in the family, chant. But then again, we recommend that one take time to sit down, free from all other activities, and simply focus on chanting their prescribed number of rounds. We can do both. Because again, that verse, remember Krishna, is the essence of all spiritual practice. So if we're remembering Krishna, it's not that, okay, well, I have my responsibilities with my family, therefore Krishna's on the sideline, I don't have to think about him, I just have to think about what I'm doing. But by thinking about Krishna while we're doing these other things, it's not that it interferes with our ability to take care of our family or to execute our work. In fact, when you bring Krishna into everything you do, you'll find that it becomes nice. So,
Yes,
you,
Prabhuji, and I attend Mangalarati like while brushing. Sometimes I attend. Is it offense, Prabhuji? Like I keep seeing the Mangalarati and I keep brushing. Is that okay, Prabhuji? Is it offense?
well, I think if you can avoid it, it's better.
Okay.
I don't think it's an offense, but I think it's maybe not required.
Okay.
Yeah, the more you focus on spiritual life, the more you can actually feel the connection with Krishna.
Okay.
Matter of focus.
Okay. But I get some sort of alarm. If I get sleep at 1:30 also, I get up by 4:15 like that, Prabhuji, and I attend Mangalarti, and then I do chanting, and then I attend Bhagavatam class while doing work, Prabhuji.
Well, you only sleep 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's not so much.
And by afternoon, I sleep 1 hour, Prabhuji, 1 hour, sometimes 1.5 hours in the afternoon.
Okay. The question is, if it works for you, in other words, if you're feeling satisfied in your spiritual practice, then fine. Continue. If you're not feeling satisfied, then you might have to adjust things.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you, Mataji. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I don't think there are any further questions. There's some appreciations in the chat for you, Guru Maharaj. Okay, I think say Hare Krishna Mahamantra for Guru Maharaj and thank him for coming today. You can sing Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna, Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare,
Rama Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Rama,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Hare.
Rama, Hare
Thank
Hare,
you so much.
Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Krishna
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for coming.
Dandavat pranam,
We
Guru
should be
Maharaj.
back.
We are so blessed.
We are so
Blessed
blessed.
for beautiful class.
Ram Pavni Dev
Thank you, Guru
Vaishnav.
Maharaj, for nice session.
Ki Jai, Shivapad Ki Jai.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Guru
so much,
Maharaj.
Maharaj,
Thank
for
you
a
so
happy
much,
class.
Mataji.
Happy to see you, Guru Maharaj.
Dandavat pranam, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, we are very much blessed to see you this morning, Prabhu. And the whole day will be boosted.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Blessings
Maharaj,
of
may I end
Krishna.
the meeting?